Good evening, my friends. It's Indiana Holmes here for story time, and we are continuing tonight with our book, The Maltese Falcon. We begin tonight with chapter 20, If They Hang You. For all of 5 minutes after the outer door had closed behind Caspar Gutman and Joel Cairo, Spade, motionless, stood staring at the knob of the open living room door. His eyes were gloomy under a forehead drawn down. The clefts at the root of his nose were deep and red. His lips protruded loosely, pouting. He drew them in to make a hard V and went to the telephone. He had not looked at Bridget O'Shaughnessy, who stood by the table looking with uneasy eyes at him. He picked up the telephone, set it on its shelf again, and bent to look into the telephone directory hanging from the corner of the shelf. He turned the pages rapidly until he found the one he wanted, ran his finger down a column, straightened up, and lifted the telephone from the shelf again. He called a number and said, "Hello, is Sergeant Polhus there? Will you call him, please? This is Sam Spade." He stared into space, waiting. "Hello, Tom. I've got something for you." "Yes, plenty. Here it is. Thursby and Jacoby were shot by a kid named Wilmer Cook." He described the boy minutely. "He's working for a man named Caspar Gutman." He described Gutman. "That fellow Cairo you met here is with them too. Yes, that's it. Gutman's staying at the Alexandria, Suite 12C. Or was. They've just left here, and they're blowing town. So you better move fast, but I don't think they're expecting a pinch. There's a girl in it, too, Gutman's daughter." He described Rhea Gutman. "Watch yourself when you go up against the kid. He's supposed to be pretty good with a gun." "That's right, Tom. And I've got some stuff here for you. I think I've got the guns he used." "That's right. Step on it, and luck to you." Spade slowly replaced the receiver on the prong on the telephone shelf. He wet his lips and looked down at his hands. Their palms were wet. He filled his deep chest with air. His eyes were glittering between straightened lids. He turned and took 3 long, swift steps into the living room. Bridget O'Shaughnessy, startled by the suddenness of his approach, let her breath out in a little laughing gasp. Spade, face to face with her, very close to her, tall, big-boned, and thick-muscled, coldly smiling, hard of jaw and eye, said, "They'll talk, when they're nailed, about us. We're sitting on dynamite, and we've only got minutes to get set for the police. Give me all of it, fast. Gutman sent you and Cairo to Constantinople?" She started to speak, hesitated, and bit her lip. He put a hand on her shoulder. "God damn you, talk," he said. "I'm in this with you, and you're not going to gum it up. Talk. He sent you to Constantinople?" "Yes, he sent me. I met Joe there and asked him to help me. Then we wait." "Wait? You asked Cairo to help you to get it from Kemedov?" "Yes." "For Gutman?" She hesitated again, squirmed under the hard, angry glare of his eyes, swallowed, and said, "No, not then. We thought we would get it for ourselves." "All right. Then?" "Oh, then I began to be afraid that Joe wouldn't play fair with me, so I asked Floyd Thursby to help me." "And he did?" "Well, we got it and we went to Hong Kong." "With Cairo? Or had you ditched him before that?" "Yes, we left him in Constantinople in jail. Something about a check. Something you fixed up to hold him there." She looked shamefacedly at Spade and whispered, "Yes, right. Now you and Thursby are in Hong Kong with the bird." "Yes, and then?" "I didn't know him very well. I didn't know whether I could trust him. I thought it would be safer. Anyway, I met Captain Jacoby, and I knew his boat was coming here. So I asked him to bring a package with me. That is, a package with him for me. And that was the bird. I wasn't sure I could trust Thursby, or that Joe or somebody else working for Gutman might not be on the boat that we came on. and that seemed the safest plan. All right, then you and Thursby caught one of the fast boats here. Then what? Then, then I was afraid of Gutman. I knew he had people, connections, everywhere, and he'd soon know what we had done. And I was afraid he'd have learned that we had left Hong Kong for San Francisco. He was in New York, and I knew that if he heard that by cable, he would have plenty of time to get here by the time we did, or before. He did. I didn't know that then, but I was afraid of it. And I had to wait here until Captain Jacoby's boat arrived, and I was afraid of Gutman. I was afraid he would find me, or find Floyd, or buy him over. That's why I came to you to ask for help, to watch for him. That's a lie, Spade said. You had Thursby hooked, and you knew it. He was a sucker for women. His record shows that. The only falls he took over were for women. And once a chump, always a chump. Maybe you didn't know this by his record, but you know it, and you had him safe. She blushed and looked timidly at him. He said, you wanted to get him out of the way before Jacoby came with the loot. What was your scheme? I knew he'd left the States with a gambler after some trouble. I didn't know what it was, but I thought that if it was anything serious and he saw a detective watching him, he'd think it was on account of an old trouble and would be frightened into going away. I didn't think. You told him he was being shadowed, Spade said confidently. Miles hadn't many brains, but he wasn't clumsy enough to be spotted the first night. I told him yes. When we went out for a walk that night, I pretended to discover Mr. Archer following us and pointed him out to Floyd, she sobbed. But please believe, Sam, that I wouldn't have done it if I hadn't thought Floyd would kill him. If I'd thought Floyd would kill him, I would have never done that. I thought he'd be frightened into leaving the city. I didn't for a minute think he'd shoot him like that. Spade smiled wolfishly with his lips, but not with his eyes, and he said, if you thought he wouldn't, you were right, Angel. The girl's unpraised face held utter astonishment. Spade said, Thursby didn't shoot him. Incredulity joined astonishment in the girl's face. Spade said, Miles hadn't any brains, but, Christ, he had too many years of experience as a detective to be caught like that by a man he was shadowing. Up a blind alley with his gun tucked away on his hip and his overcoat buttoned. Not a chance. He was as dumb as any man ought to be, but he wasn't quite that dumb. The only two ways out of the alley could be watched from the edge of the bush street over the tunnel. You told us Thursby was a bad actor. He couldn't have tricked Miles into the alley like that, and he couldn't have driven him off and driven him in. He was dumb, but not dumb enough for that. He ran his tongue over the side of his lips and smiled affectionately at the girl. He said, but he'd have gone up there for you, Angel, if he was sure nobody else was up there. You were his client, so he would have had no reason for not dropping the shadow on your say-so? On your say-so? And if you caught up with him and asked him to go up there, he'd have gone. He was just dumb enough for that. He'd have looked you up and down and licked his lips and gone grinning from ear to ear, and then you could have stood as close to him as you liked in the dark and put a hole through him with the gun you had got from Thursby that evening. Bridget O'Shaughnessy shrank back from him until the edge of the table stopped her. She looked at him with terrified eyes and cried, Don't talk to me like that. Sam, you know I didn't. Stop it. He looked at his watch on his wrist. The police will be blowing in any minute now, and we're sitting on dynamite. Talk. She put back her hand on her forehead. Oh, why do you accuse me of such a terrible... Will you stop it? He demanded in a low, impatient voice. This isn't the spot for a schoolgirl act. Listen to me. The pair of us are sitting under the gallows. He took hold of her wrists and made her stand up straight in front of him. Talk. How do you know he licked his lips and looked. Spade laughed harshly. I knew Miles, but never mind that. Why did you shoot him? She twisted her wrists out of Spade's fingers, put her hands up around the back of his neck, pulling his head down until his mouth all but touched hers. Her body was flat against his knees to chest. He put his arms around her, holding her tight. Her dark, lashed lids were half down over velvet eyes. Her voice was hushed, throbbing. I didn't mean to. At first, I didn't really. I meant what I told you, but when I saw Floyd couldn't be frightened, Spade slapped her shoulder. He said, That's a lie. You asked Miles and me to handle it ourselves. You wanted to be sure the shadower was somebody you knew, and who knew you, so they'd go with you. You got the gun from Thursby that night. You had already rented the apartment on Coronet. You had trunks there, and none at the hotel, and when I looked at the apartment over there, I found a rent receipt dated 5 or 6 days before the time you told me you rented it. She swallowed with difficulty, and her voice was humble. Yes, it's a lie, Sam. I did intend to. If Floyd, I can't look at you and tell you this, Sam. She pulled his head farther down until her cheek was against his cheek, her mouth by his ear, and she whispered, I knew Floyd wouldn't be easily frightened, but I thought that if he knew somebody was shadowing him, either he'd or... I can't say it, Sam. She clung to him, sobbing. Spade said, You thought Floyd would tackle him, and one or the other of them would go down. If Thursby was the one, then you were rid of him. If Miles was, then you could see that Floyd was caught, and you'd be rid of him. That it? Something like that. And when you found that Thursby didn't mean to tackle him, you borrowed the gun and did it yourself, right? Yes, though not exactly, but exact enough. And you had that plan up your sleeve from the first. You thought Floyd would be nailed for the killing. I thought they'd hold him at least until after Captain Jacoby arrived with the Falcon. And you didn't know then that Gutman was here hunting for you. You didn't suspect that, or you wouldn't have shaken your gunman. You knew Gutman was here as soon as you heard Thursby had been shot. Then you knew you needed another protector, so you came back to me, right? Yes, but oh, sweetheart, it wasn't only that. I would have come back to you sooner or later. From the first instant I saw you, I knew... Spade said tenderly, You, Angel? Well, if you get a good break, you'll be out of San Quentin in 20 years, and you can come back to me then. She took her cheek away from his cheek, drawing her head far back to stare up without comprehension at him. He was pale. He said tenderly, I hope to Christ they don't hang you, precious, by that sweet neck. He slid his hands to caress her throat. In an instant she was out of his arms, back against the table, crouching, both hands spread over her throat. Her face was wild-eyed, haggard, her dry mouth opened and closed. She had said in a small, parched voice, You're not... She could get no other words out. Spade's face was yellow, white. Now. His mouth smiled, and there were smile wrinkles around his glittering eyes. His voice was soft and gentle. He said, I'm going to send you over. The chances are you'll get off with life. That means you'll be out again in 20 years. You're an angel. I'll wait for you. He cleared his throat. If they hang you, I'll always remember you. She dropped her hands and stood erect. Her face became smooth and untroubled except for the faintest of dubious glints in her eyes. She smiled back at him gently. Don't, Sam, don't say that, even in fun. Oh, you frightened me for a moment. I really thought you do such wild and unpredictable things that... She broke off. She thrust her face forward and stared deep into his eyes. Her cheeks and flesh around her mouth shivered, and fear came back into her eyes. What, Sam? She put her hands to her throat again and lost her erectness. Spade laughed. His yellow-white face was damp with sweat. Though he held his smile, he could not hold softness in his voice. He croaked, Don't be silly. You're taking the fall. One of us has got to take it. After the talking, those birds will do. They'd hang me sure. you're likely to get a better break. Well, but Sam, you can't. Not after what we've been to each other. You can't. Like hell I can't. She took a long, trembling breath. You've been playing with me, only pretending you cared, to trap me like this. You didn't. You didn't care at all. You don't. You don't love me. I think I do, Spade. I think I do. What of it? The muscles holding his smile in place stood out like whales. I'm not Thursby. I'm not Jacoby. I won't play for a sap for you. That's not just, she cried. Tears came to her eyes. It's unfair. It's contemptible of you. You know it's not that. You can't say that. Like hell I can't, Spade said. You came into my bed to stop me asking questions. You led me out yesterday for Gutman with that phony call for help. Last night you came here with them and waited outside for me and came in with me. You were in my arms when the trap was sprung. I couldn't have gone for a gun if I'd had one on me, and I couldn't have made a fight of it if I wanted to. And if they didn't take you away with them, it was only because Gutman got too much sense to put trust in you, except for short stretches, when he has had to. And because he thought I'd play the sap for you, and, not wanting to hurt you, wouldn't be able to hurt him. Bridget O'Shaughnessy blinked her tears away. She took a step towards him and stood looking at him in the eyes, straight and proud. You called me a liar, she said. Now you are lying. You're lying if you say you don't know down in your heart that, in spite of anything I've done, that I love you. Spade made a short, abrupt bow. His eyes were becoming bloodshot, and there was no change in his damp and yellowish, fixedly smiling face. Maybe I do, he said. What of it? I should trust you? You, who arranged that nice little trick for my predecessor, Thursby? You, who knocked off Miles, a man who had nothing against, that you had nothing against, and you did it in cold blood, just like swatting a fly, for the sake of double-crossing Thursby? You who double-crossed Gutman, Cairo, Thursby, 1, 2, 3? You who've never played square with me for half an hour at a stretch since I've known you? I should trust you? No, darling. I wouldn't do it even if I could. Why should I? Her eyes were steady under his, and her hushed voice was steady when she replied, Why should you? If you've been playing with me, if you don't love me, there is no answer to that. If you did, no answer would be needed. Blood streaked Spade's eyeballs. Now his long-held smile had become a frightful grimace. He cleared his throat huskily and said, Making speeches is no damn good now. He put a hand on her shoulder. The hand shook and jerked. I don't care who loves you. I'm not going to play the sap for you. I won't walk in Thursby's and Christ knows who else's footsteps. You killed Miles and you're going over for it. I could have helped you by letting you and the others go and standing off the police the best way I could. It's too late for that now. I can't help you, and I wouldn't if I could. She put a hand on his hand that was on her shoulder. Don't help me then, she whispered, but don't hurt me. Let me go away now. No, he said. I'm sunk if I haven't gotten you to hand over to the police when they come. That's the only thing that keeps me from going down with the others. You won't do that for me? I won't play the sap for you. Don't say that, please. She took his hand from her shoulder and held it to her face. Why must you do this to me, Sam? Surely Mr. Archer wasn't as much to you as... Miles, Spade said hoarsely, was a son of a bitch. I found that out the first week we were in business together, and I meant to kick him out as soon as the year was up. He didn't do me a damn bit of harm by killing him. Then what? Spade pulled his hand out of hers. He no longer either smiled or grimaced. His wet yellow face was set hard and deeply lined. His eyes burned madly. He said, Listen, this isn't a damn bit of good. You'll never understand me, but I'll try once more and then we'll give up. Listen, When a man's partner is killed, he's supposed to do something about it. It doesn't make any difference what you thought of him. He was your partner, and you were supposed to do something about it. Then it happens we were both in the detective business. Well, when one of your organization gets killed, it's bad business to let the killer get away with it. It's bad all around. Bad for that one organization, bad for every detective agency everywhere. Third, I'm a detective, and expecting me to run criminals down and then let them go free is like asking a dog to catch a rabbit and let it go. It can be done, all right, and sometimes it is done, but it's not the natural thing. The only way I could have let you go was by letting Gutman and Cairo and the kid go. You're not serious, she said. You don't expect me to think that these things you're saying are sufficient reason for sending me to the... Wait till I'm through, and then you can talk. Fourth, no matter what I wanted to do now, would be absolutely impossible for me to let you go without having myself dragged to the gallows with the others. Next, I've no reason in God's world to think that I can trust you. And if I did this and got away with it, you'd have something on me that you could use for whatever you wanted, for whatever happened whenever it happened. That's 5 of them. The 6th would be that. Since I've got something on you, I couldn't be sure you wouldn't decide to shoot a hole in me someday. 7th, I don't even like the idea of thinking that there might be one chance in 100 that you played me for a sucker. And 8th, but that's enough. All those on one side. Maybe some of them are unimportant. I won't argue about that. But look at the number of them. Now, on the other side, what have you got? All we've got is the facts that maybe you love me, and maybe I love you. You know, she whispered, whether you do or not, I don't. It's easy enough to be nuts about you. He looked hungrily from her hair to her feet and up to her eyes again. But I don't know what that amounts to. Does anybody ever? But I suppose I do. What of it? Maybe next month I won't. I've been through it before. When it lasted that long, then what? Then I'll think I played the sap. And if I did it and I got sent over, then I'd be sure I was a sap. Well, if I send you over, I'll be sorry as hell. I'll have some rotten nights. But that'll pass. Listen. He took her by the shoulders and bent backwards, leaning over her. If that doesn't mean anything to you, forget it, and we'll make it this. I won't, because all of me wants to. Wants to say to hell with the consequences and to do it. And because, God damn you, you've counted on that with me the same as you've counted on that with the others. He took his hands from her shoulders and let them fall to his sides. She put her hands up to his cheek and drew his face down again. Look at me, she said, and tell me the truth. Would you have done this for me if the Falcon had been real and you'd been paid your money? What's the difference? And what difference does it make now? Don't be too sure I'm as crooked as I'm supposed to be. That kind of reputation might be good for business, bringing in high-priced jobs and making it easier to deal with the enemy. She looked at him, saying nothing. He moved his shoulders a little and said, well, a lot of money would have been at least one more item in the other side of the scales. She put her face to his face. Her mouth was slightly open, with lips a little thrust out. She whispered, if you love me, you'd need nothing more on that side. Spade set the edges of his teeth together and said through them, I won't play the sap for you. She put her mouth to his, slowly, her arms around him, and came into his arms. She was in his arms when the doorbell rang. Spade, left arm around Bridget O'Shaughnessy, opened the corridor door. Lieutenant Dundee, Detective Sergeant Tom Paulus, and 2 other detectives were there. Spade said, hello, Tom. Get him. Get him? Got him. Swell. Come in. Here's another one for you. Spade pressed the girl forward. She killed Miles, and I've got some exhibits, the boys' guns. One of them's Cairo's, a black statuette that all hell was about, and $1,000 bill that was supposed to be bribed with. He looked at Dundee, drew his eyebrows together, leaned forward to peer into the lieutenant's face, and burst out laughing. What in the hell's the matter with your little playmate, Tom? He looks heartbroken. He laughed again. I bet, by God. When he heard Gutman's story, he thought he had me at last. Cut it out, Sam, Tom grumbled. We didn't think, watering through, you'd have the sense enough to know I'd been stringing Gutman. Cut it out, Tom grumbled again, looking uneasily sideways at his superior. Always we got it from Cairo. Gutman's dead. The kid had just finished shooting him when we got up there. Spade nodded. He ought to have expected that. Effie Perrine put down her newspaper and jumped out of Spade's chair when he came into the office at a little after 9 o'clock in the morning. He said, Morning, Angel. Is that what the papers have? Right, she asked. Yes, ma'am. He dropped his hat on his desk and sat. His face was pasty in color, but his lines were strong and cheerful in his eyes. Though still somewhat red-veined, they were clear. The girl's brown eyes were peculiarly large, and there was a queer twist in her mouth. She stood beside him, staring down at him. He raised his head, grinned, and said mockingly, So much for your mother's intuition. Her voice was queer as the expression on her face. You did that, Sam, to her? He nodded. Sam's a detective. He looked sharply at her. He put his arm around her waist and said, She did kill Miles, Angel. He said gently, offhand like that. He snapped the fingers of his other hand. She escaped from his arms as if it had hurt her. Please don't touch me, she said brokenly. I know you're right, but don't touch me now, not now. Spade's face became pale as his collar. The corridor door's knob rattled. Effie Perrine turned it quickly and went into the outer office, shutting the door behind her. When she came in again, she shut it behind her. She said in a small, flat voice, Iva is here. Spade, looking down at his desk, nodded almost imperceptibly. Yes, he said, and shivered. Well, send her in. And that, my friends, is the conclusion of the book by Dashiell Hammett, The Maltese Falcon. I hope you enjoyed that. If you have never seen the 1941 film, The Maltese Falcon, I encourage you to do it. It is very closely the same as this book. It follows the book very closely, although I think the characters of Gutman and Cairo and Bridget O'Shaughnessy and, of course, Sam Spade are played with much more grit and much more interesting turns of character throughout the movie than we really see here in the book. I've seen The Maltese Falcon, the movie, many, many times. It's really great, and I think you'd enjoy it if you've never seen it. So you could probably find it on most streaming services and probably even on YouTube. All right, my friends, that is the end for this book. I'll have to find us another book. This has been Indiana Homes for Storytime. Good night.
Please hit the like button, subscribe, and hit the notifications button. Thank you very much.